These catecholamines are the main hormones released in the body when we lie, because these hormones are responsible for reaction that spawns from stress, whereas this complex hormonal cascade arise and the adrenals conceal cortisol, also called stress hormones in general language, in the body of any individual. First, we're gonna discuss on catecholamines. All catecholamines contains a main catechol group. The main catecholamines are epinephrine and norepinephrine and dopamine. These three are the main catecholamines. The main components of lying are catecholamines, epinephrine, norepinephrine, uh, otherwise known as adrenaline. We know it's commonly used from adrenaline, and this these are the hormone responsible for the reaction that happens to the body when we become stressed. These reactions include increased heart rate, muscle tenses, increased blood pressure and respiration, and vasocons and vasoconstriction, and this epinephrine essentially prepares the body from stressful or harmful situations. It is produced, this epinephrine is produced by the adrenal medulla using two amino acids, this phenylalanine and next is tyrosine. First, dopamine is produced, which is then converted into norepinephrine and then into epinephrine through a series of reactions that occurs inside the body, and then it is stored in chromaffin cells of this adrenal medulla. Epinephrine is released into bloodstream when the sympathetic uh, nervous system is stimulated by something that causes person to feel stressed. When we feel stressed, then it's released, and adrenocorticaffin hormone is also used in process of stimulating the adrenal gland to release epinephrine. This adrenaline or epinephrine is produced in the body because it is an important part of the body's ability to survive. So it can save someone's life even in the most stressful situation. Although lying immediately may not be life threatening, but epinephrine is the force behind the uh, telltale symptom of lying, like sweating and elevated heart rate. And this catecholamines mediate its effect in the heart through beta 1 and beta 2 receptors. Beta 1 receptors mediate the effect sympathetic nerve stimulation. On the other hand, this cardiomyopathy is associated with increased sensitivity of catecholamines, and it aggravate cardiac damage in ischemia. So norepinephrine is another fight or flight hormone that is released when the body undergoes stress. It is also produced in adrenal medulla and is created in same way that epinephrine is through the transit of amino acids into hormones. Once this norepinephrine is produced, then is stored in this synaptic vesicles until stimulated to release. And this release occurs when the body begins to feel stressed and is done to prepare and is done so to prepare the body from harmful situations. It's released to prepare body from harmful situations by providing protection to key organs and functions of body. And when this hormone is released, it binds with um, adrenergic receptors, and in order to carry its duties. So this norepinephrine triggers the release of glucose into bloodstream and cause an increase in blood pressure, heart rate, mental awareness, and respiratory rate. So it also acts as an anti-inflammatory of the brain and draws blood away from some organs to prepare the body for the situation we're going to face ahead. And epinephrine and norepinephrine are these two hormones that are naturally produced within the body through a series of reactions. Both are driven from the same two amino acids, and phenylalanine and tyrosine, which are the building blocks of catecholamines. And the process from the creation of these two hormones are like it starts from epinephrine, and then norepinephrine and tyrosine and dopamine, and it goes on, and again epinephrine. This tyrosine is oxidized into aldopa, and from aldopa is decarboxylated into dopamine, and then dopamine is then oxidized into norepinephrine, and then norepinephrine is methylated into epinephrine, and this same process occurs during the creation of norepinephrine, but it stops before methylation occurs. Both of these hormones can be created systematically, synthetically in same order in the lab for pharmaceutical process. The process used to artificially create these hormones is exactly similar to that which occurs inside our body. It's exactly same thing happens inside the body also. And then secondly, it's cortisol, is also called stress hormone, is glucocorticoid um, hormone, which is produced from cholesterol in two adrenal glands located on top of our each kidneys, on just above the kidney, and it's normally released in response to events and circumstances such as like playing, exercising, or a severe type of stress, or our lie are being detected, or some similar conditions. It is normally released in response to events and circumstances which creates overexcitement or similar things. And this cortisol is mm, response to cortisol is like far-reaching systematic effects that play many roles in process of handling the body and maintain homeostasis. Cortisol also plays an important role in human nutrition. It regulates energy by selecting the right type of amount and substrate, and the body needs to meet psychological and physical demands. When chronically elevated cortisol can have a um, deleterious effect on weight, immune functions, and chronic disease risk. Cortisol, along with its partner, epinephrine, is best known for involvement in fight or flight response and temporary increase in energy production. All these expense of a process that are not required for immediate survival. This resulting biochemical and hormonal imbalance, ideally like it's imbalance, to resolve, and due to a hormonally driven negative feedback loop. And the we can go through this example how due to lie response operates, and it intense survival mechanism. We can just have an example like individual faced with a stressor due to lie, like we lied with somebody and then we feel some stress, whether out of fear that lie may be detected or anything. and a complex hormonal cascade flows, and then adrenal conceal this cortisol, cortisol, and then cortisol prepares the body for a fight or flight response by flooding with the glucose in blood vessels and supplying an immediate energy resource to large muscles. And then this cortisol um, inhibits insulin production and attempt to prevent glucose from being stored, favoring its immediate use. From that, cortisol narrows the arteries, while epinephrine increase heart rate, both of which force blood to pump harder and faster. The individual address and resolves the situation, or vice versa. It may happen sometimes we address this problem and resolve this situation immediately, and sometimes we may not be able to address, or we may be able to address, but we may not be able to resolve or handle the situation. And if situation is resolved, hormone level returns to um, normal level, hormone levels return to normal, else we suffer stroke. So in short, the theory is that we can say, with our ever-lying habit, our bodies that are pumping out this cortisol almost constantly, which can work havoc on our health. This whole body process mediated by hormones, and immune system identifies cortisol as one of many players, but by isolating its role helps put into context that many complex mechanism that leads to specific physical and psychological damage. So we should be careful. It may not be seen that life threatening, but in fact it's that life threatening. So we should be careful in this. And